The players who broke World of Warcraft itself. I love seeing these things. A lot of broken things have happened in the game in the past, whether somebody got a weapon they shouldn't have gotten, a mount they shouldn't have gotten, or they explored some broken region that they should have never gotten to. Funny things have happened over the years. It's a 20-plus-year-old game now. Let's see what Necrowar has put together of ways people have broken the game.
You level up, get geared, clear dungeons, then move on to raids. It's the path hundreds of thousands of players follow. It's familiar, predictable, but some choose to break free from that endless loop and play differently, in ways that make others look at them sideways, in ways that even bend or break the game itself, since the developers never intended anyone to play like that, and yet it can be incredibly satisfying. In this video, I want to talk about players who deliberately chose the path of the outcast, the villain, or the hermit. You've all probably heard of Neutral Agent, the player who managed to level up to the maximum level.
This guy just did herbalism, and mining the entire way and leveled up as he was a panda who never chose a side. He's the only true panda. Because the Pandaren are supposed to be neutral. This guy was like, I'll never pick a side, I'm just going to be neutral forever, and he did it.
While staying on the Pandaren starting island, it took him countless hours of grinding and resource farming. Recently, he made headlines again. With every new expansion, he brings his characters to the cap, and the latest one was no exception. Earlier this year,
he did it again. I didn't know that.
Level up. Get this, 8 neutral Pandaren to the maximum level.
God.
Sure, leveling in the war within is a bit easier than it was back in Mists of Pandaria, and he didn't have to start completely from scratch this time. Still, it took a huge amount of time and patience. Why 8 characters? And why do it at all? 8, because Neutral Agent wanted to have a max level neutral Pandaren for every available class. As for why, he enjoys tough challenges, and it's his way of building a lasting
Pure
legacy.
degeneracy.
But spending years wandering around that small starting zone, while impressive, comes with one unbreakable rule. You can't leave it. Only after completing the final quest line and choosing a faction, Horde or Alliance, can you explore the rest of Azeroth. However, a few players managed to break that sacred rule. In Warcraft's history, there were occasional bugs that allowed Pandaren to escape the island before finishing the introductory questline or choosing a faction. In practice, this meant the character could roam Azeroth in a fully neutral state, essentially becoming part of an unofficial third faction. This became possible shortly after the release of Mists of Pandaria, likely because...
I wonder what that means, though. If they're like flagged, maybe they could never flag for PvP, I have no idea. But if they were, are they attackable by both the Alliance and the Horde, or are they simply not attackable by either side? Just neutral all the time, can never be attacked.
Certain parts of the new zone hadn't been fully tested. The method of escape went like this. A player would create a Pandaren monk and level up to 20 on the starting island.
Okay.
Since the available quests ran out long before level 20, the remaining experience had to be earned through gathering professions. Tedious, yes, but the end goal made it worth it. Once the player reached level 20, they unlocked the ability Zen Pilgrimage, which teleported the monk to their class sanctuary in Pandaria. From there, they had to perform a few frustrating maneuvers.
They could go to their class order hall for monks? Is that what it is?
Such as drowning the character in a lake and trying to reach the farthest edge of the map before fatigue killed them. If done correctly, the Pandaren would respawn at the Kunlai summit, from where they could run to the Jade Forest, use a faction portal, and escape into the open world. None of this was easy, but it offered a truly unique Outcast-style gameplay experience.
So they were essentially corpse running all the way over to the Pandaren hub cities where they could port out.
Obviously, neutral Pandaren, without a faction, faced countless restrictions. In fact, it's easier to list what they could do than what they couldn't. Let's start with the limitations. They couldn't whisper other players. Only fellow Pandaren. Trade chat and other channels were completely inaccessible. You couldn't send mail, trade, or invite others to groups. Queuing for battlegrounds was impossible. Dialogue from NPCs appeared as random gibberish, since the character didn't understand any language other than Pandaren. In short, almost every form of social...
He couldn't understand any language except Pandaren. So I guess fellow Pandaren, even if they were on the Alliance or Horde, if they switched their dialect to Pandaren only, they could understand them. That's freaking crazy.
Interaction was either restricted or bugged.
Sounds great.
There were a few things neutral Pandaren could do that no one else could. Both Horde and Alliance players and NPCs were neutral toward them. Technically, that meant you could freely wander through the capital cities without fear of being attacked by guards or killed by other players. You could even access the auction houses of both factions. That said, you couldn't really profit from it. As mentioned before, sending mail to other players was disabled. When a Pandaren character died, they would instantly resurrect at their corpse. Many quests and quest lines were unavailable.
That's interesting.
Later, players discovered a way to queue for dungeons, but only with other neutral Pandaren.
Oh my god. You got to have a neutral Pandaren raid then. We got to get 40 people to do, or 30 people to do this and form up an entire raid of neutral Pandaren.
With Horde or Alliance players was impossible. So yes, the list of restrictions was massive, but perfectly fitting for a true neutral outcast. Leveling in that mode would have been a real trial by fire. Most likely, it came down to grinding mobs endlessly and completing the few available quests. In essence, you were an exile. You couldn't talk to other players, use the benefits of any faction, or even take part in battles. You were just a lonely wanderer. It would have been amazing to see someone reach the level cap this way. But shortly after the bug was discovered, it was fixed.
The
ability Zen Pilgrimage was disabled on the Pandaren starting island, and all characters who had managed to escape were teleported back. Like one player who had explored Kalimdor and even earned reputation with a goblin faction, only to be sent back after the fix. But Pandaren weren't the only ones fated to live as outcasts. There have always been players who found ways to make their own journey harder. One such group plays without choosing a specialization. At first glance, it might not sound like a big deal, but in practice, refusing to pick a spec comes with a massive list of limitations. At low levels, it's barely noticeable, but the further you progress, the more it feels like you've entered a personal hell. Even something as basic as gear becomes a problem, since dungeon loot is often tied to your specialization. Without it, you get nothing. Players have to make do with rare, often low-quality items. Abilities are another issue. You only have a small handful of them, and fights against regular mobs can drag on painfully long. Ordinary enemies start feeling like mini-bosses, according to one player, by around level 20.
This should be the new hardcore. All the hardcore WoW community should get on this. The no-spec, fully leveled out character. Everything becomes difficult because you're limited on your abilities and your armor.
During Battle for Azeroth, solo questing had become almost impossible, forcing him to rely heavily on others. Another player described how you can't even progress through expansion storylines. In Shadowlands, campaigns were tied to covenants, and without a specialization, you couldn't accept those quests at all.
So you can't do, that's a plus though, right? You can't do Shadowlands. That's a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing.
So this kind of playstyle turned you into a true hermit. One mage took it even further, leveling up without gear, without dying once, and without professions. It took him just over 50 hours of playtime. Of course, it's all just for fun. No one seriously plays like this. But the point is, there are countless ways to enjoy World of Warcraft. A few expansions ago, the developers introduced a new starting zone for players, Exile's Reach. But the most surprising thing is that you can actually level up there without ever leaving it. Even more incredible, it's technically possible to level up without ever setting foot on the island itself, by staying on the very first ship before it sails into the storm that's supposed to bring your character ashore. Sounds insane, right? Leveling up without leaving the starting ship? And yet it's absolutely possible. A player known as Chicho pushed it even further, reaching level 80 without ever leaving that ship. How is that even possible? To begin,
he's a level 80 pirate. This guy grew up, born and raised on a ship, never left the ship, just leveled up here?
How is that even possible? To begin with, while players normally spend only about 5 minutes aboard, it's actually possible to stay there indefinitely and farm the training dummies. They don't give much experience, but reaching around level 10 this way is entirely realistic. After that though, the experience gain stops, and that's where pet battle daily quests come into play.
No
Essentially, these dailies can be started on one character and completed on another. They aren't tied to a specific character like most quests in the game. And that's the entire leveling strategy, completing those pet battle dailies every day until reaching the level cap.
This guy Pokemon trained his way all the way up to cap level? What the heck?
Only 5 of these quests available, so consistency is key. You can't really push it any further. Yes, the process is painfully slow, but it works. So how long did it take? It's important to clarify that the leveling spanned 3 expansions, during which the experience gain rates changed. Early in Shadowlands, the amount of XP from level 50 to 60 was so small that starting from scratch could have taken years. But after patch 9.1, the XP rewards were increased, speeding things up significantly. In total, going from level 1 to 60 took 237 days, from 60 to 70, another 60 days, and from 70 to the current maximum, level 80, it took 59 days. Altogether, a bit over 350 days of effort. Sure, it wasn't a hardcore grind, just a couple of minutes of
this guy pet battled for a year. What the heck?
daily quests each day, but still, the achievement is genuinely impressive.
And I believe that's non-stop, like 50 hours. That's like through the night for a year. What the shit?
Hardcore Warcraft sparked a new wave of interest.
I mean, just leave it up to WoW players to just reach a level of degeneracy you never thought possible. That's we should be proud of each other.
In the classic version a few years ago. Although various self-imposed challenges already existed that limited how players could level up, the arrival of hardcore mode caused a real boom. But for some, even a mode where your character can't die wasn't difficult enough. Many players decided to make an already punishing experience even harder. How, you ask? Well, one player known as Rudism decided to level up using a dance pad. He configured it so that each button on the mat corresponded to an in-game action. Needless to say, the number of available inputs was extremely limited. Raiding with such a setup would be nearly impossible. But leveling up? Somehow, yes. However, in tough situations, the lack of mobility quickly became a problem. The streamer...
I mean, WoW coming to console, I never thought we would see WoW coming to a DDR platform before it came to console. That's crazy.
Made the one mistake every hardcore player fears most. He went into a cave. Several spiders attacked him, and as he tried to flee, he aggroed even more.
Oh no.
The result was both predictable and tragic: death. Later, he made several more attempts to level up this way, but from what I've gathered, he eventually abandoned the challenge. Unfortunately, still, that wasn't the craziest thing players have ever done. Imagine leveling up without any gear. Sounds rough.
Oh, naked leveling?
Now imagine doing it as a warrior. In classic Warcraft, warriors are already considered one of the hardest classes to level. Forced to fight in melee range, yet lacking the self-healing that paladins have. That means after every fight, you need to sit and drink to recover. Now picture doing that with no equipment at all, not even a weapon. A player known as Historical Warning 88 decided to take on that challenge. All he had were determination, patience, and his bare fists. Fists he used to punch his way through Azeroth's mobs. The difficulties he faced were countless.
He didn't even use a weapon? He just literally butt naked fisting everything to death. What the hell?
Leveling was painfully slow, taking far longer than anyone could have expected.
Fisting his way to the top.
Second, it was hardcore, meaning there was zero room for mistakes. Pull too many mobs, or worse, step into a cave and trigger an extra enemy and you're dead. Let's be honest, even in normal gameplay, a few unexpected enemies can easily send you to the graveyard. Here, even a single mob was a serious threat. At lower levels, it wasn't so noticeable.
Now this is hard for him, but imagine being a Naga who has to go back to his family and explain that you just watched your friend die to a butt-naked man after he fisted him to death. Imagine having to go tell that to your children, to your wife. What happened? The dishonor that he brings to these people. It's crazy. I can't. Like you said, yeah, WoW players love punishment. They really do.
But the deeper he progressed, the more dangerous things became. He had to fight creatures far below his level just to survive. For example, when he reached level 53, he was farming Naga around level 43-44 to balance out the lack of gear. It gave less experience, but at least it was safe. Even then, his health often dropped dangerously low, forcing him to drink and heal after every battle, then start again from scratch. Slowly but surely, progress came. The warrior had only a handful of abilities that could deal damage. Most of his attacks came down to basic auto attacks with his fists.
And thunderclapping.
By level 40, he had just 2 offensive abilities. The rest required a weapon. To avoid unnecessary fights, he sometimes used the layering system. For instance, if he needed to turn in a quest surrounded by mobs, he would switch to another layer where the area was clearer and hand it in without combat. In his own video, the player admitted that he had started this challenge as a joke months earlier. He never expected to make it that far, but to his surprise, he did. And even gained huge support from the community. How long did it take? A total of 364 hours of pure playtime spread over 9 months of dedication. You know, in the history of World of Warcraft, we players are almost...
Oh, by the way, did I earlier say 365 hours was a year? 365 days. What the fuck? I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I can't remember if he was saying how many days it took him. Maybe it was days. I'm tripping.
Always the protagonist.
But 365 hours, that's a lot.
Handle matters for distant factions, slay villains, battle ancient gods, or repel another demonic invasion of Azeroth. But sometimes, you just want to be the villain. The game offers very few opportunities for that. That didn't stop a player known as I Need to Know. He decided to become a true villain. The game has an honor system. You can kill enemy players and faction leaders to earn honor, which increases your rank and unlocks various rewards.
Right.
To prevent players from going rogue and killing quest NPCs or merchants, the developers added a system of dishonorable kills, which encourages players to behave properly. During development, there was even a plan for a kind of negative ranking system. At certain thresholds, a player's character could become an outcast, losing access to cities, being unable to interact with NPCs, and even becoming...
This could exist like in Booty Bay. I mean, you could go the other way with your reputation to the negative side where you just make everybody an enemy, right? You're no longer neutral. You become an enemy of that faction. So that is something that existed. I think people had to... I remember them talking about that. I think they had to go back and fix some of that, though, because there were some quest lines, I forgot which expansion, that eventually you had to talk to like the Bloodsail Buccaneers or something like that. And there were people who had turned them into enemies, so they couldn't do the quest. So Blizzard had to like erase that reputation or something. There was a thing like that. My mage was very much hated by Booty Bay. Yeah. It was BC. Maybe that had happened. Yeah. So this thing did exist. I think there are some factions that you can still turn them into enemies if you want to.
Hated by their own faction. The system was ultimately scrapped, apparently in the late...
Also, like Scryers, you guys remember in BC, there was the Scryers and the Aldor or whatever, and you could literally, you pick one, right? You could go make the other one hate you even more by flying over to that side and killing those NPCs.
Later stages of development.
I remember that.
Had it been implemented, I Need to Know 1800 would have become the ultimate
it was the
villain.
Goblin's reputation.
His goal, 100,000 dishonorable kills, preferably before the release of Burning Crusade servers, where the system would be nullified. To put it mildly, this was an ambitious objective. Here's a snippet from one of his posts. I fell in love with the process. Killing civilians, ganking, guaranteed open-world PvP. Terrorizing Crossroads is my reward after a good session of dishonorable kills. It's inefficient, but it's the best part of my work. I've built a full project management schedule to make it happen, with goals, metrics, and burnout prevention measures.
I swear, like, there are some potential, like, CEOs out there. There are some potential, like, world cure-finding people who decided to put all their energy into playing WoW instead, and they created amazing things like this instead of contributing to society in a meaningful way. There's a lot of people who play this game that could have became something great, and this game stopped them from doing it. Look at this work. Unbelievable.
Measures. I also track the cost of every dishonorable kill, consumables, reagents, repair, and summoning services. Sounds villainous, doesn't it? And it is. He, like a dark paladin, decided to cleanse the world of the Horde and introduce them to the justice of death. So, what was his progress? By June 2025, he had 10,000 dishonorable kills. By July, 33,000. By September, he surpassed 60,000, only to hit a technical limit. Apparently, there was a cap. Upon reaching 65,535 kills, his counter reset. As he speculated in his post, the value was stored as an unsigned 16-bit integer, which overflows at the maximum. In other words, the game simply won't let you reach the clean, round figure of 100,000 dishonorable kills. Whether he continued farming dishonorable kills or not, one thing is clear: he became the ultimate villain of his server.
That is too damn funny. What the hell? He capped out dishonor. You bring dishonor on your family at a cap. That's it. Cool video. Yeah, again, like WoW player degeneracy, it's unmatched. It really is. Nice video here from Necro Ward.